Our rhetoric in this country could be turned down a little bit. The tone could be turned down a little bit.
The tone really matters, and the word tone was used a lot this morning, and sometimes we feel like we're sort of victims of the tone.
We can set a tone to tell the nation we should disagree on things, but we don't ever do this.
I'm going to say that I think the tone does need to change.
We've all been reminded in a really horrible way about the necessity to maintain the right tone here.
Bring the tone of the rhetoric down.
Tone down the rhetoric.
Tone it down.
Tone it down. Welcome back to AM Joy. In a rare display of bipartisan agreement in Washington, Democrats and Republicans coalesced around one talking point after the Wednesday shooting at a GOP congressional baseball practice. It's time for a tonal shift in our politics. But shortly after the shooting, Republican Representative Chris Collins struck a different note from the Kumbaya chorus by placing the blame squarely on the other side of the aisle.
I always try to look for a silver lining in any tragedy like this. I can only hope that the Democrats do tone down the rhetoric. The rhetoric has been outrageous of the finger pointing, the just the tone and the angst and the anger directed at Donald Trump, his supporters. Really then, you know, some people react to things like that. They get angry as well.
Collins later walked back that statement, expressing regret for having pointed the finger at his Democratic colleagues.
I would argue that the president has unleashed is partially, again, not in any way totally, but partially to blame for demons that have been unleashed.
And not to go on too long with the setup, but let's listen to Donald Trump just talking about the media.
And by the way, some of the media is terrific, but most of it, 70%, 75%, is absolute dishonest, absolute scum. She's back there, little Katie, she's back there. What a lie it was. No, what a lie. Katie Tur.
This sleazy guy right over here from ABC, he's a sleaze in my book. You're a sleaze.
I have a running war with the media. They are among the most dishonest human beings on earth.
And one more little montage. I'm sorry, one more. Because we're talking about tone, and tone, you know, starts at the top, fish rots from the head. Let's listen to Donald Trump targeting protesters at some of his rallies.
Who's protesting? Anybody? Oh, get out of here. Get him out. Get him out.
How old is this kid? Get out of here. Get out of here. Still wearing diapers. Look at this kid.
If you see somebody getting ready to throw a tomato, knock the crap out of them, would you? I promise you, I will pay for the legal fees, I promise.
Evan, how is it that Republicans have the cheek to blame Democrats for the tone in Washington?
First of all, Donald Trump attacking Katie Tur. Can I just say I'm with Tur? I want to talk about it. I think the tone has been very bad on both sides of the aisle, going back to the 90s and Clinton.
Well, you've used my least favorite term in Christendom, both sides, because I think both sidesism and whataboutism is ridiculous. I mean, for one thing, the criticisms of George W. Bush were because we were involved in a war for which the pretext was a completely false, made-up pretext, right? It was saying that Iraq was involved in 9/11. And so I think the anger and the criticism was because, wait a minute, people were being sent to die in a war based on something that wasn't true and based on ginning up Americans' emotions around 9/11. Are you saying that's the equivalent of, for instance, Ted Nugent about Barack Obama saying he should suck on my machine gun? Is that there is no both sidesism here.
No, it's
You're talking about criticism of a war versus a president sending us to war.
Criticism of the war does not allow you, it does not justify going out and saying that George Bush is mentally retarded or having cartoonists from the Pittsburgh.
Said he was
there were plenty of protesters on the left who said he was mentally retarded, and then you have plenty of cartoonists in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette who painted him as a monkey who cared about nobody else and didn't know what he was doing. You have people going out and saying that Republicans are evil. Their agenda is insensitive, and they want to.
You don't think it's insensitive to cut Meals on Wheels? You're saying that it is actually the same, that there is an equivalency between hanging Barack Obama in effigy, calling him a witch doctor, calling him Hitler, and saying, hey, you can't cut Meals on Wheels. It's insensitive. It is insensitive to cut Meals on Wheels.
That Republicans are evil and that they are the Taliban and they have a war on women. Have you noticed how we can't even get a bill passed? How can we have a war on women when we can't even...
But what are the bills that you're attempting to pass? Is it not cutting Meals on Wheels, cutting Sesame Street, going after Medicaid, which helps the poor? I do not see the equivalency. I'm going to be honest.
And you know I have opposed those, but...
Okay, well, I'm going to let other people into this conversation. conversation. Eric, do you think that there is a sort of equal and opposite? We now have Fox News walking back from the idea of the fair and balanced slogan because they said it was the subject of ridicule.
Right.
Is there an equivalency here? Is it both sides are equally mean?
No, I think you did a pretty good rundown. You know, we have Fox News. What did they spend this week doing? They spent the week laying the premise that Trump should fire the special prosecutor, right? And the acting FBI director was the, quote, ringleader of this campaign to oust Trump. So nobody on Fox is trying to step back from the tone. No one from Fox is saying, hey, let's be responsible and things like that. And, you know, then you've got people running onto the stage at Shakespeare in the Park because they don't disagree. And if these Republicans are so upset about tone, where were they when a reporter was body slammed in a primary?
We were putting out statements saying it was wrong.
I didn't see it.
What planet are you on?
That reporter was ridiculed daily by the right-wing media, by a sissy.
By the alt-right, but you have Republican representatives saying it was wrong. You have Ben
Paul
Sasse.
Ryan barely got up enough courage to say, well, maybe he should apologize.
He did it, but he didn't do it enough to your satisfaction?
Absolutely.
That's outrageously ridiculous.
Let me get my other two guests in here.
If you're going to have courage, have courage.
Kate, and you know, we're all friends here, so we can have these arguments because we're all good. But Caton, you know, it does feel like you have people on the right, you have Republicans trying to sort of make themselves the victim. They seem to crave this idea of being the victims of hate. But you do have Breitbart having headlines that, you know, feminism makes women ugly, going after Black Lives Matter, going after black people, and essentially painting African Americans as just a mass of criminals. You have the obsessions on Fox News with the new Black Panther Party and saying that they are responsible for the problems with elections or calling people violent based on race. I mean, these are things that we know happen. Why now are Republicans attempting to sort of make themselves the victims when we saw death threats against members of Congress for passing universal health care in 2010? I mean, there is a record here, right, Caton?
So the question, Joy, is why now are Republicans trying to be kind and sensitive? That's not going to last very long.
Why is Ted Nugent, who said Obama should suck on his machine gun, who said Hillary Clinton should be hanged, who said that if Barack Obama was reelected, he would be dead or in jail, suddenly he comes out and says, I want us to change the tone. Really?
Well, you know, I guess people can ask for forgiveness later. What I see now is
he's asking the left to change their tone. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He said the left needs to change its tone.
Well, we're going to spend a lot of time on tone, and I'm going to throw that in the trash can and spend some time on primaries, because that's what this is about. You got two bases on both sides. You got a hard left base, a hard right base, and that's who elects these people. Now, as far as Hollywood, Ted Nugent, I mean, I don't think Ted's ever been elected to anything, but as far as those are concerned, we can't really control that. We can't control our conduct and the manners we have. Both of those have been thrown out the window in politics, modern day.
Well, he hasn't been elected to anything, but he's sure been to the White House and into the well of Congress for State of the Union addresses, and that's while he was threatening the president and a woman who wanted to be president. So I'm just going to leave that there and go to Tara, because Caton makes a really good point that at the end of the day, this is about winning elections, and you are a political consultant extraordinaire.
I do think, though, and one of the things I'm concerned about is that Republicans are using this sort of tone thing, telling Democrats to watch their tone, as a way to stop very sharp criticisms of things that should be criticized. Democrats should be criticizing a health care bill that's being drafted in the dark that has the potential to have 23 million Americans lose their health coverage. Democrats should be attacking that. Democrats should be sharply attacking the fact that multiple people under the in the Trump administration have some sort of cloud of suspicion of corruption around them. Multiple people this early into an administration. Those should be things that Democrats should be criticizing. Democrats should be criticizing a budget that hurts the poor and hurts people who've already been left behind in this country. So this sort of Democrats watch their tone thing, I think, is more about trying to silence Democrats around these issues that they should be addressing.
All right. Well, I'm going to give that lady the last word.